My life was a quiet tapestry woven from the threads of routine and solitude. Each day, I'd sit by my window, my hands, now gnarled with age, cradling a warm cup of tea as I watched the world go by. My small house, the one my late husband John and I had built with our own hands, was my sanctuary. It was more than just wood and nails. It was a treasure chest of memories, each corner holding a whisper of laughter, a shadow of a shared dream. John was a soldier, a hero who never came home, and this house was the last piece of him I had left. The flag he was given, folded with military precision, sat on the mantelpiece, a silent testament to his sacrifice. My little garden, with its stubborn roses that bloomed every spring, was his favorite. Everything was a memory, and I was its devoted keeper. Then, she arrived. Her name was Carol, the newly elected head of our homeowners association. She moved in with an air of self-importance, her gaze sweeping over our quiet neighborhood like a hawk searching for prey. My little house, with its slightly faded paint and sprawling, untamed rosebush, immediately caught her eye. It began with letters, crisp and impersonal, tucked into my mailbox. The first one cited a violation for improperly maintained foliage. I trimmed the roses, though it pained me to tame their wild beauty. Then came another, complaining about the aged appearance of my fence. I spent a weekend I could barely afford to have it repainted. The letters kept coming, each one a small, sharp jab at the heart of my home, a direct assault on the world John and I had created. Carol's complaints grew more audacious, more personal. She spoke of property values and community standards, but her eyes held a different story, a story of greed and envy. I heard whispers from neighbors. She wanted my land. My double lot was the only one on the street, and she had grand plans for a sprawling new home with a swimming pool. The day it all shattered, the sky was a brilliant, unforgiving blue. I was tending to John's roses when Carol marched up my driveway, a clipboard in hand, her face a mask of smug authority. She didn't just want me to change my home anymore. She wanted to take it. She launched into a prepared speech, her voice dripping with condescension. She spoke of eminent domain clauses buried deep in the HOA bylaws, of my inability to maintain the property, and of a final offer to buy me out for a fraction of its worth. "It's for the good of the community, Eleanor," she said, her smile not reaching her eyes. "Think of it as an upgrade." An upgrade? An upgrade? She wanted to bulldoze my memories, pave over my heart, and call it an upgrade. Tears welled in my eyes, blurring the image of her triumphant face. My voice was a choked whisper. "This is my home," I pleaded. "My husband. He built this house." Carol scoffed. "Your husband is long gone. It's time to be realistic." The words struck me like a physical blow. My knees felt weak, and the world seemed to spin. I stumbled back, my hand finding the porch railing for support. My home, my life was being ripped away by this cruel, relentless woman. Despair, cold and absolute, washed over me. I was just an old woman. Who would fight for me? But as I looked past Carol's shoulder, a flicker of movement caught my eye. Across the street, a curtain twitched in the window of the new neighbor's house, the young man who had just moved in a few months ago. He was always so quiet, a respectful nod my only interaction with him. Now I saw his silhouette, still and watchful. And I wasn't the only one who noticed. Carol's smug expression faltered as she followed my gaze. A black car, sleek and official-looking, had pulled up silently behind her. Two men in sharp suits stepped out, their faces stern and unreadable. They walked with a purpose that made the air crackle. One of the men, tall and broad-shouldered, addressed Carol, but his eyes were on me. "Ma'am," he began, his voice a low rumble of authority, "is this woman harassing you?" Carol sputtered, her face turning a blotchy red. "I am the president of the HOA. I am discussing a legal matter." The man didn't even blink. He turned to me, his expression softening almost imperceptibly. "Mrs. Miller? My name is Colonel James Anderson. I served with your husband." He gestured toward the quiet young man who was now walking across the street. "This is my son, Captain Evans. We heard you might be having some trouble." The quiet neighbor, Captain Evans, came to stand by my side, his presence a solid, reassuring wall. He looked at Carol, his eyes cold as steel. "My father and I have been documenting your harassment of Mrs. Miller for the past month," he said, his voice dangerously calm. "We have recordings of your threats, copies of every letter, and statements from other neighbors you've intimidated." The second man produced a folder and handed it to a bewildered Carol. "You have violated multiple state and federal harassment laws. the colonel continued. And as for the HOA, we've reviewed your bylaws. Your interpretation of eminent domain is not only wrong, it's fraudulent. We've already been in contact with a lawyer, pro bono. You will be hearing from them. And from the district attorney, Carol's face went from red to a ghostly white. The clipboard fell from her nerveless fingers, scattering papers across my lawn. She looked from the colonel to his son, then to me, her eyes wide with disbelief and fear. She had tried to extinguish a small flickering candle, not knowing it was being guarded by the very fire of the battalion her victim's husband had once commanded. She had seen a frail old woman, not the widow of a hero, a woman held sacred by those who honored his memory. The two men stood like sentinels on my lawn, a silent promise that I was no longer alone. Carol, without another word, turned and practically ran, her reign of terror dissolving into a pathetic retreat. Captain Evans turned to me, his professional demeanor melting away to reveal a kind, gentle smile. My dad always said John Miller was the best man he ever knew, he said softly. He told me to look out for you. Said it was the least we could do. Tears streamed down my face, but this time they were tears of overwhelming gratitude. John was gone, but his brotherhood, his legacy of honor, had reached across the years to protect me. They had been watching all along. That day I learned something profound. You may feel small and alone, tossed about by the storms of the world. But you are never truly forgotten. The ripples of a good life, of love and sacrifice, travel further than we can ever know, and they often return to us as waves of kindness when we need them most. If the memory of a hero can inspire such loyalty, if the quiet love in a small house can be so fiercely protected, then perhaps you too have unseen guardians watching over you. If this story touched your heart, if you believe in the enduring power of love and honor, please press that like button. Let it be a small light, a signal to all the quiet heroes and the ones they watch over that they are seen and they are not alone. Thank you for listening.